Listen, out in the real world, Mother Nature does not care about your fancy ballistic app. Gravity starts pulling down on that projectile the exact millisecond it leaves your muzzle. When you are perched on a windy ridgeline, looking across a massive canyon at a trophy bull elk, you do not have the luxury of time. Fumbling with windage dials and trying to do complex holdover math under pressure is exactly how you lose the animal of a lifetime. What you need in that moment is a literal laser beam. You want a round moving with so much brute force and sheer velocity that it practically tells the laws of physics to take a back seat. We are talking about flattening the curve. When that distance stretches out, trajectory becomes your absolute master. We are all chasing that holy grail of a zero-drop hunting setup where you can simply put the crosshairs on the vitals, manage your breathing, and break the shot. Whether you are trying to ring steel plates in the next zip code or you need to humanely harvest big game in unforgiving, steep, mountainous terrain, you need the right tool for the job. So today, we are breaking down the top 5 flattest shooting cartridges you can legally own and shoulder. You might want to ice your collarbone beforehand because these magnums treat gravity like a mild suggestion. Number 5. 6.5 300 Weatherby Magnum. Starting off our list at number 5, we have an absolute ballistic anomaly in the 6.5mm category. The 6.5 300 Weatherby Magnum. When the engineers over at Weatherby unleashed this monster back in 2016, they were not just trying to push the envelope. They basically shredded the envelope and set the pieces on fire. What they did was take the massive, cavernous brass of the 300 Weatherby Magnum parent case. Then, they violently necked it down to firmly seat a slender .264 caliber bullet. We are looking at pushing projectiles ranging from 127 grains all the way up to 140 grains. I have run this setup over a chronograph, and the numbers are honestly intimidating. If you chamber up a 127 grain Barnes LRX, that bullet is fleeing the muzzle at a blistering 3,500 feet per second. Even if you decide to bump up to a heavier bonded 140 grain A-frame, you are still cruising at nearly 3,400 feet per second. That translates to a massive payload of kinetic energy, sitting right between 3,400 and 3,700 foot-pounds at the muzzle. So, why does it make the cut? Because it currently wears the undisputed crown as the fastest production 6.5 cartridge on the market today. It takes those long, incredibly aerodynamic high BC bullets and pushes them with so much powder that bullet drop is virtually a myth inside of 500 yards. If you are hunting bighorn sheep or chasing mule deer across extreme vertical elevation changes, this rifle is an absolute cheat code. But as any seasoned shooter knows, physics always comes to collect its debt. The recoil impulse is incredibly sharp and punishing. The muzzle blast alone will rattle your teeth, and the barrel life is downright depressing. If you manage to squeeze 600 to 800 rounds of sub-MOA precision out of that barrel, you are doing incredibly well. This is a highly specialized scalpel, typically found chambered in premium chassis like the Weatherby Mark V AccuMark or their lightweight Backcountry 2.0. Number 4. 257 Weatherby Magnum. Coming in at number 4 is a piece of undisputed American firearms heritage, the 257 Weatherby Magnum. This is the original pioneer of extreme velocity, dreamt up by the legendary Roy Weatherby way back in 1944. Roy took the proven, heavy-hitting 375 H&H Magnum brass. He chopped the case, blew the walls out for maximum powder capacity, and necked it down to accept a quarter-bore 25 caliber bullet. Historically, this was widely known to be Roy's personal favorite creation, and once you get behind the trigger, you immediately understand why. Pushing a standard 100-grain hunting pill, you are tearing out of the barrel at 3,600 feet per second. If you decide to step up to the heavier 120 grain loads for deeper penetration, you are still moving at a screaming 3,200 feet per second. You are looking at a rock-solid 3,100 foot-pounds of muzzle energy to back it up. The entire reason this cartridge reached legendary status is brilliant in its simplicity. It was purpose-built to eliminate the need for holdovers entirely. When you are looking at targets 400 to 500 yards out, this round flies flatter than nearly anything else sitting on a sporting goods store shelf. If you are setting up over a massive bean field for whitetail or glassing open plains for pronghorn, the hydrostatic shock this round delivers upon impact shuts the central nervous system down instantly. The obvious pros here are the sheer velocity and the absolutely devastating terminal ballistics. The cons? Well, you are paying the classic Weatherby tax. It will erode a barrel throat incredibly fast. The factory brass will hurt your wallet, and you absolutely need a long 26-inch barrel to achieve those advertised ballistic numbers. If you try to run this in a short barrel, you are just throwing unburnt powder into the air and making a whole lot of noise. You will primarily see this iconic chambering in the flagship Weatherby Mark V and their more accessible Vanguard rifle lines. Number 3. 26 Nosler. Sliding into the number 3 spot is a modern-day powerhouse, the 26 Nosler. This round was conceptualized and engineered with one very specific mission parameter in mind: to become the absolute flattest shooting cartridge in recorded history. Nosler rolled this out to the public in 2013 as the flagship for their proprietary ammunition line. They took the massive, powder-hungry case of the .300 Remington Ultra Magnum, trimmed the length down, and necked it to fit a 6.5mm projectile. The underlying design philosophy here is raw, uncompromising velocity. It drives lead downrange with such ferocity that if your target is inside 400 yards, you can completely ignore your elevation dial. You just put your reticle right where you want a hole, manage your trigger pull, and break the shot. I would argue this stands as one of the most lethal 6.5mm platforms ever brought to market. It is a purpose-built, long-action instrument designed specifically for harvesting incredibly tough animals like elk and mountain sheep at extended ranges. It reliably delivers massive kinetic energy well beyond the 500-yard line. But just like we saw with the high-speed Weatherby Magnums, you are going to pay a heavy toll in barrel steel. The throat erosion is aggressive, so expect your accuracy to start degrading anywhere from 800 to 1200 rounds. You also need to understand that the recoil impulse is significantly more violent than the gentle push of a 6.5 Creedmoor or even a 6.5 PRC, and to feed reliably, it absolutely demands a standard long-action receiver. If you want to run this cartridge, you will be looking at serious hunting rigs like the Nosler M48, the Christensen Arms Mesa, or custom builds based on the Weatherby Mark V. Number 2. 28 Nosler. Taking the runner-up spot at number 2 is the heavier, harder-hitting older brother, the 28 Nosler. Hitting the market in 2015, this cartridge takes that exact same modified .300 Ultramag parent casing, but necks it up to firmly seat a massive 7mm bullet. The engineers built this to extract every last ounce of ballistic potential out of those long, high BC 7mm projectiles. Now, I hear shooters at the range constantly trying to compare this to the old standard 7mm Rem mag, or even the .300 Win mag. But if we are looking at the hard data, the 28 Nosler leaves them both in the dust when it comes to raw velocity and terminal energy. And it manages to do all of this while seamlessly feeding from a standard long-action magazine. If you hand-load a heavy 180-grain Berger VLD, you are easily clocking muzzle velocities right around 3,150 feet per second. That is safely outpacing the 7mm Rem mag by nearly 200 feet per second with the exact same bullet weight. When you are tracking massive elk, heavy moose, or thick-skinned mountain goats across expansive valleys, that extra speed and energy retention gives you a massive tactical advantage. It has also become a massive favorite in the extreme long-range shooting community for reliably slapping steel targets well beyond the 1,000-yard line. The advantages are undeniable. You get incredible downrange energy retention and a ridiculously flat flight path that puts most heavy .30 caliber magnums to shame. The downsides? You are looking at an exceptionally short barrel life, and the felt recoil is incredibly punishing on the shoulder. This hits noticeably harder than a standard Magnum, so you absolutely need to invest in a high-quality, aggressively ported muzzle brake to tame the beast. You can pick this up in premium factory configurations like the Bergara B14, the Christensen Arms Ridgeline, or the Savage 110 High Country. Number 1. 7mm PRC. Finally, standing alone at the top of the podium, the 7mm PRC. This cartridge is currently taking the entire firearms industry by storm, and for a very good reason. It perfectly bridges the gap between massive raw horsepower and incredibly intelligent modern chamber geometry. Developed by the brilliant minds at Hornady and officially launched in late 2022, the 7mm precision rifle cartridge is built off the beltless .375 Ruger casing. Unlike the legacy Magnums of the past that relied on sheer powder volume alone, this was engineered from the primer up for ultimate long-range precision. The secret sauce is the standardized match throat, which was specifically cut to accommodate those incredibly long, sleek, heavy projectiles. We are talking about efficiently running bullets like the 180-grain ELD match. And the best part is, it achieves this without forcing you to seat the base of the bullet deep down into the powder column, which traditionally robs you of case capacity. Out on the range, we are seeing incredibly consistent muzzle velocities, sitting right in that optimal sweet spot of 2,950 to 3,000 feet per second. That specific velocity window ensures your bullet remains supersonic well past the 1,200-yard mark. The true magic of the PRC lies in its standardized twist rates and overall ballistic efficiency. It perfectly stabilizes those heavy-for-caliber bullets so they can slice through crosswinds and deliver massive foot-pounds of energy directly on target. It is currently dominating PRS-style matches and ELR events, while simultaneously acting like the hammer of Thor on big North American game. Are there drawbacks? Sure. It is definitely not a rifle you want to shoot all day in a t-shirt. The recoil impulse feels a whole lot closer to a heavy 300 Win Mag than it does to a soft-shooting 6.5 Creedmoor. And because it is still relatively new to the market, sourcing factory match ammunition can sometimes feel like a scavenger hunt compared to legacy rounds. But the supply chain is improving every single day. If you want a factory-produced cartridge that can effortlessly ring steel at a mile and ethically drop heavy game 3 ridgelines over, the 7mm PRC is the undisputed new king. So there you have it, folks. 5 absolute powerhouse cartridges that practically erase bullet drop and make extreme long-range engagements feel like a walk in the park. Whether you prefer trusting the unbridled classic speed of a Weatherby Magnum, or you lean towards the hyper-efficient modern geometry of a PRC, you are putting the laws of physics heavily in your favor. I want to hear from you guys down in the comments section. If you are running any of these high-velocity flamethrowers on your own rigs, drop your load data, your preferred projectile weights, and your real-world hunting results below. If you found this breakdown helpful and learned something new today, do me a huge favor. Crush that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss our next upload. Stay safe, train hard, shoot straight, and we will see you out on the range.